It's December, the decorations are up, the skins are red and green, there are tremendous deals on Steam, and we still don't have a new Twisted Metal. It's been 12 years since the last installment came out, and I'm not sure why, but lately I've had an uncontrollable cravings for a new one. Who would have thought that the relapse would happen 12 years later? Well, with the arrival of the television series and rumors of a possible game of the same genre by New Blood, it's hard not to get excited about the idea of new Twisted Metal. But I'll be honest with you, I'm scared. I'm scared of the possible outcomes. The Twisted Metal TV show only has the names of what it was before. I'm not saying it's bad, I enjoyed the show a lot. But I feel they wasted a lot of potential with the characters, reducing them to cameos, characters' names and nothing more. If it weren't for the names, I wouldn't even know who is who. Shadow appears and neither Mortimer nor Raven is driving it. Bloody Mary appears and she doesn't even resemble the one from the original game, nor do we see her car. In fact, nobody's car in this episode, and there's like 20 characters in this single episode. If they were to make a video game based on this show, knowing Sony, they would probably make a Mad Max type of game focused on a campaign to appeal to what seems to be their target audience, the game journalists, destroying the last chance the Twisted Metal IP ever had. That's why I have my hopes in New Blood. I'm sure they have the ability to publish a spiritual successor to Twisted Metal and even revive the car combat genre. But without a doubt, reviving this genre will not be an easy task. And as we are in the month of Christmas, I would like to share with you my wishlist for a spiritual successor that engages veteran players and encourages new players to fall in love with this type of games. There are many parallels between fighting games and car combat games. In fighting games, the characters must be different from each other. What sense would it make to bother choosing between two characters if both do the same thing? Similarly, characters must be recognizable at a glance, visually conveying a personality. The same happens with some shooters, knowing what you are up against to react appropriately. This also applies to vehicles in car combat, especially personality, being a double task when it comes to a vehicle and a driver. Both have to complement each other. Needless Cane and Sweet Tooth, for example, a driver as disturbing by himself as the idea of an ice cream truck armed to the teeth, or Dollface with Darkseid, who together create a striking contrast. On the contrary, despite how much I love Twisted Metal 4, I think it's the perfect example of what happens when you don't follow these principles. There are 4 vehicles that have the same ability and way of playing. There are others that do practically nothing and don't make you want to play with them. The driving is almost identical between all other vehicles. The drivers, for the most part, are unpleasant. And finally, some vehicles are so similar to each other that from a distance, you can't distinguish which is which. By the way, talking about the characters, if there's a reason why Twisted Metal has remained relevant every time the car combat genre is mentioned, it's thanks to how this series treats vehicles as characters. I think this point is perfectly explained by the director David Jeffy in this interview with Andrew Paris.
We never looked at the cars in Twisted Metal as cars. I mean, we knew that they were cars in terms of how they were presented, and the more we could present them as actual cars, that was important. But we did not give a fuck about car physics, and every goddamn car combat game that comes out seems to think the magic secret sauce is let's make them drive like real cars. But we looked at this like a fucking 3D arena fighters. The other thing a lot of the games do these days, which I hate, is that they let you keep the right stick to control camera. And so with Twisted Metal, we always knew that 95% of the combat was going to be based on what you're looking at. And so we put a premium on allowing the player to do those T-slides and 180s and quick flip arounds and all that stuff so you could reacquire your target. But a lot of games today are like, oh, we'll just let you look around with the right stick. Well, if you do that, the pacing drops off a fucking cliff.
Just to give a few examples, Vigilante 8, Crossout, Hot Pursuit, and Robocraft are games that, due to their realistic physics, make the gameplay either very clunky or very repetitive. The gameplay of Crossout and Robocraft relies heavily on your aim with the mouse, and where you start the fight. While in Vigilante 8, you can't even aim, reducing the pace to spamming the 3 weapons you can pick up. And in Hot Pursuit, it's a tremendous pain to deal with players who stay behind to avoid taking damage. I want to clarify that I love all these games, but if you want to revive the genre, we need a game that at least has the same depth as Twisted Metal Black. Just take a look at this video. Twisted Metal installments have a replayability problem. In the long run, playing the tour mode can become very repetitive, with the same maps in the same order, then fighting the same boss. There should be different ways to play single player. Implement a more rewarding horde mode, a different order of maps like in Vigilante 8, perfect the upgrade systems that Twisted Metal had on tried to implement, and even add modes that in previous installments were exclusive to multiplayer, like Nuke Mode from Twisted Metal 2012. And about multiplayer, considering that not many people play car combat titles constantly and how skilled veteran players are, it's impossible not to wish for a more friendly section that invites new players to join this wonderful community. It's super difficult to invite friends to play Twisted Metal, because it's unfair for them to fight against a fanatic like me, especially among a few friends. It's also boring that in co-op, one of us pulverizes all the bots. Also, we need to mention the limitations we face in setting up an online game, with the most common options being to use remote control applications like Parsec or Steam Remote Play. But this is also the most inconvenient option due to latency, bitrate and split screens. This game will be perfect if it could be played online. We also need more options to play cooperatively, whether playing the campaign online, playing a horde mode as a team, being able to create games and fill the empty spaces with bots. It's like with real strategy games. If there were no custom rooms, no one would dare to try strategy games for the first time. Which reminds me, the 25th anniversary of Half-Life made me travel to the past. I remember it simpler times. The anniversary brought with it an update that allows creating servers thanks to Steam networking. There are still some things to polish, but as a consequence, it is now full of community servers. Many of these servers full of people just having fun. It would be beautiful if a new car combat were like Team Fortress in its golden years. Freak Fortress, Dodgeball, Death Rune, Prop Hunt, Trade Plaza, CP Orange. The creativity of the players was immense, and there was no matchmaking that overshadowed their creations. After Meet Your Match, community servers gradually faded away. In short, a Twisted Metal successor where it's easy to create and customize rooms/servers would be immense. On one hand, it will be even easier to play with friends, and on the other, it will definitely unleash all the potentials that the genre has. There are also other problems that you avoid without matchmaking. This is much more personal, as the most competitive I can be is wanting to be first on the list of a game. I know there is never a shortage of sweaty players who cry about everything and mock everyone, ruining the fun of everyone around them. But I feel that matchmakings and competitive games increase the encounter of these type of players. In my personal opinion, I feel that competitive aspects should be something more separate from the development of video games. It's not that I'm indifferent to competitiveness within them. I cried with the video about AMSA from Asum's House, and I remember celebrating the time Shy Guy Dragons won their first match. I understand the passion behind it. But I've had terrible experiences with games appealing to competitive audience. I already talked a bit about Meet Your Match. But what was really detrimental was that overnight, there were many more people too concerned with winning. This also happened with Heroes of the Storm. During the open beta, this game was an anomaly. A MOBA where players didn't try to rip each other's faces off? That was unthinkable! Until the competitive scene arrived. And finally, balance the changes that are aimed at 1% of the players. Oh, it's great when they nerf your favorite character and you have no idea why. Anyway, if tomorrow a car combat comes out, please don't try to be the future of esports. If it has to happen, it will happen naturally. Finally, well, that, crossplay. But maybe it's too much to ask if it were to have customizable content. But it's always good to have accessibility on multiple platforms. Well, that was my wishlist for a new car combat. I've wanted to make this video for a long time. I hope you like it. and I sincerely want you to comment on your opinions about it. Also, comment on what you would like in a new game of the genre. Thank you very much for watching. I'll try to upload compilations of other games to have more content on the channel, so that doesn't remain so abandoned. Let me know if you agree or disagree. See you soon, ciao!